What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sports, Lies, and Hollywood, the first episode. This is where you're going to get all of the sports gossip, the sports tea, past and present. Stories that you may not have never known or may have ever heard about. I got them for you. And the backstories and the conclusion. Now we're going to focus not only on the 2013-2014 Indiana Pacers, but particularly on these two guys, Paul George and Roy Hibbert. Roy Hibbert was the center of the Indiana Pacers. If y'all want to do your Googles and get your Google out, and you can Google these people, along the way, if you like to keep up. Roy Hibbert was the center of the Indiana Pacers, and Paul George was the up-and-coming, budding star. Now, I believe Paul George at this time was in about his third year. And previously, this is when LeBron James had went to Miami. The previous year, the Indiana Pacers had taken to the Miami Heat to 7 games, and LeBron James had christened Paul George as the next big thing. Remember, he dunked on LeBron, right in his face. And, if I'm not mistaken, the Pacers, that took them to Game 7. I believe Game 7 even went to overtime. But Miami was able to hold on. So the following year, the Pacers had a lot of expectations. They got off to a blistering, I believe their record, I think they started like 11-0. Then I think their record was like 33-7, something like that, after like the first 40 games. And then this happened. Ooh, yeah. Remember? Anybody remember that picture? Everybody was saying, name this. Remember on Instagram, they were saying, name this R&B group. Ooh, yeah. So, now that photo happened around the All-Star break. The team was flying high. They was 33-7. Now, also, a thing that happened around the All-Star break that, to me, I know people call this season the curse of the photo, but to me, a bigger thing that happened was they traded Danny Granger. Now, Danny Granger was one of the original Pacers of this generation that came to the Pacers when the Pacers were terrible. He was a number 1 draft pick of the Pacers. I believe this was around 2000. Danny Granger may have been drafted around 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. He had gotten hurt. He had been with the Pacers all through that time, right? And he had gotten hurt. Ironically, the year prior, no, 2 years prior, a lot of people think he got hurt in a fight, during a series with the Miami Heat. I believe it was a fight in a nightclub. But he had not fully recovered. He was coming back, and then they traded Danny Granger for Evan Turner. A lot of people in the locker room, Danny Granger, even though he wasn't back playing to his full potential, they were bringing him along. He was very good friends with David West. Right, he was very good friends with Roy Hibbert. So Danny Granger being traded, I think, other than the curse of the Jodeci picture, ooh yeah, I think this was a big deal that a lot of people don't really bring up. Because when Evan Turner came in there, Evan Turner is a no-nonsense type of dude, and they're chemistry was all off. Here you got George Hill, aka Trey Songz. You got Paul George. The ladies was going crazy about Paul George, the new budding superstar. Then you got Mr. Tough Guy David West looking like their bodyguard. Then you got the crazy man, Lance Stevenson. He was just the wild card, the wild man. Right? So Evan Turner's coming in like, these dudes haven't won anything. What is all this? They was on the cover of GQ. So after the photo shoot, they finished the season 14-13. Now, they kind of limped to the finish line. They still ended up the number one seed in the conference. But they kind of limped to the finish line. Now, Roy Hibbert was known for really stepping it up in the postseason, and especially against the Heat. The previous 2 years, he had very good seasons. He had very good playoffs against the Heat. But then, in between Series 1, which they played the Atlanta Hawks, who was not that good that year. They were 8th seed. They took them to 7 games. They almost lost that to the Hawks. Then they had a tough time with the Washington Wizards. In between Game 5 of the Hawks and the beginning of the Wizards series, a rumor started circulating that Paul George was sleeping with Roy Hibbert's fiance, Valerie Cook. Now remember, Paul George right now is one of the top, like whenever they have like top single guys and this, that, and the other, Paul George would always show up there. Now he had just, I believe, came out of a relationship with Jesse Borsiega or something like that. But Paul George was actually starting to see Doc Rivers' daughter, Callie Rivers. Callie Rivers is actually married to Stephen Curry's brother right now. She ended up marrying Steph Curry's brother. Well, isn't this like rap? This is like rap. This is why athletes and rappers get along so well. So Callie Rivers was seeing Paul George, and I think Paul George was dipping out on Callie Rivers. So Roy Hibbert had a couple of games where he had 0 points. Now remember, he's about 7'2", biggest guy on the court. Was like the best rim protector in the game at this point. And he was having games where he had 0 points and 1 rebound. 0 points, 0 rebounds. I mean, just all of a sudden it was like he couldn't play anymore. And it's a very good reason. Roy Hibbert was not out there trying to win. He was throwing him, he was just not caring because the rumor had it that Paul George was messing with his fiance, Valerie Cook. And he was getting ready to marry Valerie Cook. Now, that was the rumor in the beginning. As it turned out, Paul George, I believe Valerie Cook may have DM'd him. And I'm not sure about what the DM was about. And people are saying that she DM'd him to ask about Roy or what have you. But as it turned out, okay, they was sleeping with the same woman. But it wasn't Valerie Cook. It was this woman. Porn star Tiana Trump. Tiana Trump. Now, remember, this is now 2014. Tiana Trump was sleeping with Paul George, Roy Hibbert, Lance Stevenson, and I believe George Hill. So Roy Hibbert, the story that I got was Roy Hibbert had started falling for his jump off, Tiana Trump, and Paul George was smashing Tiana Trump. At this time, I believe George Hill and Lance Stevenson had smashed previously. Because I remember her going on and saying that Lance Stevenson actually smashed her when she was 16 years old. Now, when you do a little research, it also says that Roy Hibbert was smashing Tiana Trump at 16 years old. Though that never got confirmed. But at this time, in 2013, 2014, it was Roy Hibbert and Paul George smashing Tiana Trump. And Roy Hibbert got all of his feelings, telling Paul George, you got a girlfriend. And Paul George was like, nigga, so do you. You engaged. Matter of fact, your wife hit me up. Your fiance hit me up. And the way Paul George said it, Roy Hibbert was like, oh, so the rumors are true. But Paul George was like, look, she hit me up looking for you. So it turns out that Paul George wasn't sleeping with Roy Hibbert's fiance, but Roy Hibbert ended up sleeping with Tiana Trump, caught feelings for her, and because of that, he almost didn't get married. His wedding got postponed because I believe Valerie Cook ended up finding out about Roy Hibbert sleeping with Tiana Trump. Now, I got some more stories about Tiana Trump that we're going to talk about later on in other episodes. But as it turned out, the Indiana Pacers chemistry, Lance Stevenson and Evan Turner got into a fight in the locker room, and they just could not get their chemistry together enough to beat the Miami Heat. They lost to the Miami Heat for the third straight year in 6 games. I believe Roy Hibbert may have spent one more year with the Pacers, then they traded him. Roy Hibbert and Paul George relationship was never the same. Now, the rumor got squashed that Paul did not sleep with Roy Hibbert's fiance, but it was clear that after that season, Roy Hibbert and Paul George were no longer friends. They were teammates, they played together, but you can tell they were no longer friends. So Tiana Trump ended up being the factor that took down the Indiana Pacers. So I know there's a lot of stories out there that Paul George slept with Valerie Cook. That turned out not to be true, allegedly. But it was Tiana Trump, porn star, who ruined the Indiana Pacers 2013-2014 season. Whew. Big time first episode. I hope y'all enjoyed it. We got some more juicy stuff coming up. Sports, lives in Hollywood, current, past. I'm telling you, man, let me know down in the comments if you have some sports stories or sports figures that you were always curious about. Let's see if I got any stories about them. I definitely got a bunch of them, man. Like I said, used to work for ESPN, so I got a whole bunch of stuff. It's your boy, Heaven Hollywood. This has been Sports Lives in Hollywood. See you next time. Peace.